What's up, blasters? It's Mippy here, and welcome to a new video about my pure AWPenshot Skyhunter Swap Beastfall Boots and Banishlord's Talisman build. Today I'm going to show you the ins and outs of this build and how to do vaults, nightmare dungeons, world bosses, uber bosses, and even Butcher and Self-Malphas with just one single build where you only have to swap 2 or at maximum 3 items to deal with any of this. So let's get right into it. Alright, so for the gear we have Shaco. We use a Juggernaut chest with total armor, damage reduction from close enemies, and distant damage reduction. Then we have trickshot gloves with attack speed after dodging, critical strike chance, and ranks of penshot. We use T-Bolt's Will for the increased damage after becoming unstoppable. Then we have Ghostwalker boots with dodge chance, move speed, and 2 resists of your choice that are not shadow resist because we get that from the Paragon. And on the implicit, we use attacks reduce evade cooldown to counteract the negative effect of Juggernaut. Then we're playing Skyhunter. The math for Skyhunter will be linked in the description. On average, Skyhunter is about 8 to 18% more DPS for this build than a 4 out of 4 crossbow would be. Your Skyhunter should have a pretty decent roll on critical strike damage and on the aspect though. So if it's a min roll Skyhunter, a crossbow is likely going to be better. But if the aspect's at least 20% and the critical strike damage is around, let's just say 100%, then you should be fine. Then we have a necklace with rapid to increase our basic skill attack speed. This is important because we want to stack to 6 precision stacks as soon as we can. And on the necklace itself, we use movement speed, damage reduction, cooldown reduction would be ideal here instead of ranks of all subterfuge skills. And exploit to further increase our damage against healthy enemies. And most of the time when we are in the dungeon, the enemies will be full health and we try to one-shot them from full health to 0. So exploit has a lot of value here. We use fire resist in this one to balance out our resistances depending on what we have on boots. Our first ring is going to have edge masters with critical strike chance. This is important to make sure that we get the 6 precision stacks that we want. With as few punctures as possible. The ideal puncture rotation, as mentioned earlier, is 4 to 1. Then we have critical strike damage to increase our precision key passive, maximum life for more sustainability, and maximum energy to make sure that when we swap to Beastfall or Banishlord, that we will deal more damage with the Beastfall boots aspect effect. Edge Masters is important here because we are usually at maximum energy and that makes our attacks just hit harder. Again, the resist of the ring depends on what your resistances are on the boots, so make sure to just balance out whatever resistance you're missing. Then we're using Ring of Starless Skies. If you do not have Ring of Starless Skies, just use a ring similar to this one, but with accelerating instead of edge masters. And then balance out the resistances accordingly again. We're using Condemnation. For the Condemnation, it is important to look at the aspect itself. 40% is obviously ideal, and then look at the critical strike damage, which should be high as well, and then look at the basic skill attack speed. Core skill damage is nice to have, but not immensely important, and damage with dual wielded weapons is irrelevant, as is the item power as long as the Condemnation is ancestral. For the sword, we're using a sword with Expectant to make our core skill damage deal more damage after casting 3 basic skills. And for the stats, we're looking at all stats to hit Paragon breakpoints, dexterity, critical strike damage again to increase our damage from the precision passive, and core skill damage to make our penshots hit harder. For the gentleman weapons, we are using ammo rolls to increase our critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. So for our swap gear, we are looking at Banishlord's Talisman. For Banishlord's Talisman, it is important to look at how the aspect was rolled, and then to look at how the overpower damage was rolled. These should be the first priorities. The other rolls are not important at all. Then we have Beastfall boots. For the Beastfall boots, the aspect is the most important thing. You want to be as close as possible to 1.5% as you can. And then the maximum energy should also be high to guarantee that you have a really big leverage on a big boom with your penshot. Movement speed, damage reduction, and cooldown reduction is only important to look at if you want to play the no swap version of this build where you hard equip Beastfall boots. But if you're just swapping to them, they are not as important to look at. Then you can also swap to gloves with Inner Calm instead of Trickshot that also have like overpower damage, dexterity, and crit strike damage with imbued skills to further ensure that the one-shot is going to be successful against, let's say, Butcher or Son of Malthus. And if you want to go even further, you can also swap a ring to a ring with critical strike damage, overpower damage, damage to close enemies, and maximum energy and the elements aspect. You would have to wait for the right element to show up though before shooting, which was going to be Shadow. And you are looking to replace the Ring of Starless Skies with this ring. What's helping here is that you'll have another source of maximum energy, which will make your pool even bigger for Beastful Boots, and obviously the 30% from elements is going to be also helpful in ensuring the one-shot. Let us take a look at the skills now. We're using Puncture to stack up our precision as fast as we can. That's pretty good because Puncture throws 3 blades. Each blade has an individual chance to crit, which makes it very favorable in order to get 6 precision stacks as fast as we can when we're using a 4-to-1 rotation with Puncture and Paintshot. Puncture also makes enemies vulnerable and slows them upon crit, so it is very important to use that as a source of crowd control and a source of vulnerable. Then we have points in Sturdy for the close damage reduction, 1 point in Siphoning Strikes because we have quite a lot of crit chance in order to heal ourselves up and sustain ourselves against chip damage. We use points in Stutter Step to make sure that we have a lot of movement speed all the time. And then we have ranks in Penetrating Shot, obviously, that's because it's our main damage skill. We use the Enhanced Penetrating Shot here and the upgrade with Advanced Penetrating Shots in order to slow enemies because we're usually shooting at full energy anyway, and elite enemies are going to be knocked down as well, which is a further source of crowd control. We use Shadow Step with the Disciplined Shadow Step upgrade just to have less cooldown on it. We frequently want to use Shadow Step because we want to activate Tivol's Will, and having a lower cooldown on it will usually be very, very beneficial to us. Then we have 3 points in Weapon Mastery. Weapon Mastery is not as strong with Skyhunter than it is if you were using a crossbow, but it's still a 12% multiplier and the points are not spent better elsewhere. Then we have Dash, and for Dash we want the upgrade that also slows enemies or dazes them when they're already slowed. We have 2 sources of slow already, which is going to be Puncture and Paintshot when shooting at full energy, so this is usually going to guarantee the daze upon slowed enemies anyway. Then we use 1 point in Mending Obscurity to heal ourselves when we go into Stealth, which happens with the 5 points in Concealment that we have spent. This is quite important to put points into to reduce the cooldown, because whenever we use Concealment, we will also reduce the cooldown of our Shadow Imbuement by 4 seconds due to our Night Stalker glyph. Concealment also triggers Unstoppable, which will help us to activate Tivol's Will again and gives us movement speed on top of it. 3 points in Agile for the dodge chance, because we also use attack speed after dodge. And then we have 3 ranks in Exploit, because Exploit is a good source of damage, and Malice 3 points as well. We use Shadow Imbuement. This is going to be important because we want the enemies around our targets to be affected by it, so we get the 12% multiplicative bonus from it, and also to make them explode and clear all the small mobs that might be around the elites. 3 points in Frigid Finesse. We trigger Frigid Finesse by having Frigid support on Tempest on our pet. And then we use 2 points in Shadow Clone because we swap to Shadow Clone. We also have the Unstoppable upgrade for Shadow Clone, so we get the bonus from Tivol's Will. 1 point in Adrenaline Rush to unlock Impetus, which we put 3 points in. That's going to be used in the dash setup of trying to make the enemy take more damage, because dash gives us a 15% damage multiplier for critical strike damage if the enemies are hit by it. And then we have 3 points in haste. Our key passive is going to be Precision. Precision is important because we have a lot of crit strike damage in this build and we can scale Precision really high. And getting 6 stacks of Precision is going to be imperative before shooting with our core skill. Now let's get into the Paragon. On the starting board we're using the Infusion glyph because we want to utilize the additional damage from imbued skill damage here. It's not a huge increase to our damage, but it does scale better than any other potential option that we have in glyphs, even if we cannot use the additional bonus from Infusion, which would be reducing imbuement skill cooldown, but it's still a very sizable portion in terms of additive damage that we can add. 14.9% per 5 points is nothing to look over, so we use that glyph on the starting board. Then we go into the No Witnesses board, where we pick up the critical strike damage from Ruin and the damage to Healthy, as well as these nodes. Then move into the Glyph area, where we socket in Efficacy to boost the damage and health nodes here, and increase the explosion damage from our Shadow Imbuement as well. Pick up the life nodes and move into Exploit Weaknesses, where we pick up some elite damage and movement speed after killing elites, and use combat on this board. Then move into the Tricks of the Trade board, where we pick up some distant damage reduction because we don't have that on Tybalt's Will. Move up here to pick some shadow resistance to balance out the lack of 3 resistances on the boots because we run dodge. And then pick up the legendary Tricks of the Trade node here to increase our marksman skill damage after we cast the Cutthroat skill. The usage for this is going to be whenever we have 6 stacks of precision, we want to use dash or shadow step to activate this and then shoot our pen shot immediately after that. Then we take some elite damage here and put the Night Stalker glyph into our Tricks of the Trade board, because whenever we enter stealth, we would reduce the cooldown of Shadow Imbuement by 4 seconds, and with high ranks of concealment, that means we'll have a lot of Shadow Imbuement available as well. Pick up some further critical strike damage here, and then move into the cheap shot board, where we pick up some more damage to Healthy and some damage reduction from Slowed. Put in the control glyph because we have access to chilled and frozen as well, and slow is also a crowd control, so we gain the bonus from this as well. Then we also take the legendary node to increase our damage against every enemy that is crowd controlled, and also pick up Safeguard to have a little bit of damage reduction against elites. And then finally move into the Eldritch Bounty board, where we socket in Exploit for the vulnerable, pick up some imbued skill damage, pick up some non-physical damage and imbuement skill cooldown reduction, and then finally pick up the Eldritch Bounty legendary node that whenever we attack with an imbued skill, we gain maximum resistance to that element and increase our damage by another 20%. Right, on our construct, we're going to use the Tempest Tuning Stone with a Safeguard, Evernight, and Frigid support to also trigger Fidget Finesse. If you do not have Evernight, you can also use a Swift or Arcing. And then we have Flash of Adrenaline, where we use Genesis, Duration, and Tactical. If you do not have Genesis, you can use Fortify here instead. And with Duration and Tactical support at rank 10, we guarantee that Flash of Adrenaline is up all the time. Alright, so here we will see a Vault of Cinders tier 100 that I'm going to clear as fast as I can while still killing most, if not all, the elites that I see. And we're going to complete this vault in around 2 minutes. If you take a little bit more time to loot every corner, you will probably be able to complete it in around 2:30. But for the sake of this video, I just try to go as fast as I can without ignoring each and everything. I think if you just want to run through for glyph experience, you can probably do it in 1:30. But in the clip, we're going to see a little bit of the showcase on how to use the build itself. I usually try to stack up precision to 6. And then when I have 6 precision stacks, either shoot immediately if the elites are lined up well, or use dash or shadow step to reposition myself and also gain the bonus of Tricks of the Trade. Further, it is this is the exact build without any swaps. So whenever you saw the footage of the bosses that I showed, these had only 1 or 2 items swapped from this exact build that you're seeing right now. And I try to optimize it for speed, but also for clearing. And in around 1 minute 20, we are already really close to the final room of the vault, which we're going to enter basically after the next elite pack. You're seeing here that Shadow Imbuement usually takes care of most of the small mobs that are around the elites as well. And for the last room itself, it takes us around, well, 30 seconds, as the Vault of Cinders has that room. And with all the elites spawning here, I usually try to use Shadow Imbuement and immediately use Concealment after it, not only to activate Tybalt's Will, but also to reset Shadow Imbuement's cooldown as quickly as I can. clearing up the last remaining elites here. We are looking at a overall total clear time of 2 minutes and I think it's 17 seconds at the end. Yeah, right about that. While still being able to loot pretty much everything. Alright guys, now you're gonna see a few clips of me utilizing the swap method to take down T100 bosses and world boss, but Duriel or Butcher. And again, this is done without any changes to the skills or Paragon, only skill or gear swaps. So in this clip you see me fight a T100 Butcher with swapping in Beastfall boots, Banished Lord's Talisman and my Inner Calm gloves. I do stack up the Banished Lord's Talisman on him here quite quickly. I've taken some shots at him, so he's a little bit lower than full HP. And once I have 300 stacks of Banished Lord's Talisman, I make sure to stack up my other buffs like Expectant and Combo Points and 6 Precision stacks, like you can see here. Then I drag Shadow Clone on my skill bar, use some potions to make sure I'm full HP, and once everything is set up, I use Shadow Imbuement, dash through him to get the 15% damage multiplier, critical strike damage multiplier from dash, and also Shadow Imbue the Butcher. Then I activate Beastfall Boots, as you can see here. I also dashed far enough to activate Impetus, and then I take a massive 207 million pan shot at the T100 Butcher to bring him down in one shot pretty much. Alright, so in this clip you're gonna see me fight a T100 Nightmare Dungeon boss by just swapping in Beastfall Boots. I do not even swap into Banished Lord's Talisman here because I wanted to showcase how to do it without Banished Lord's Talisman. And the only thing I do is swap Shadow Clone to my skill bar, stack up Precision, and then one-shot the boss even without Banished Lord's Talisman. I open up the fight by stacking Precision, then I use drag Shadow Clone to my bar, use Puncture to gain 3 combo points and stack up the Expectant aspect. And then just use Shadow Imbuement with Shadow Step to have the boss be Shadow Imbued to take more damage. And as you can see here, Shadow Step does not break Inner Calm, so I get the bonus. And I also get the Tricks of the Trade bonus after using Shadow Step. And after I have done this, I activate Shadow Clone. So Beastfall Boots is active, and then I immediately shoot my pen shot without doing anything else. And you see the boss taking 63 million damage here without even having Banished Lord's Talisman equipped. Alright, so the same thing works on Duriel as well. In this clip I'm going to show you the what I call lazy method of doing the one-shot. I swap to Beastfall Boots, Banished Lord's Talisman, and Inner Calm gloves. And basically just stack up combo points, Precision, and Expectant. And stand still while doing so. And after I got 30 stacks of Inner Calm, I basically use Shadow Imbuement, Shadow Step onto Duriel to apply the Shadow Imbuement to him. Then with 300 stacks of Banished Lord's Talisman, I activate Shadow Clone. And then I just release the pen shot and deal 373 million damage to him. So the lazy method also works on world bosses. Here you can see me having pre-stack Precision, Banished Lord's Talisman, and Inner Calm. Use Shadow Imbuement, Shadow Step onto him once I have maximum stacks, gain Tricks of the Trade, use Shadow Clone, and then shoot the pen shot for 284 million. So the lazy method even works to one-shot world bosses. Alright, so in this immensely large Google Sheet, we see some math about Skyhunter vs. Crossbow. Big thank you to my boy Ava, who provides us with all the best math for all things Rogue and basically all things D4. And a short summary is basically that in AWPenshot, the Skyhunter is going to be around 18.22% better than a 4/4 crossbow that would also have maximum stats. The link to this sheet is also going to be in the description below if you want to check out the math yourself. It's basically a sort of damage calculator as well. You could make a copy of this sheet and input your own stats to see if your particular Skyhunter would also be better than a crossbow, depending on the stats that you have. Alright, so a little bit more math about crit chance in AWPenshot. And we have to consider that we want to get 6 stacks of precision as quickly as we can. And for that, the optimal rotation is going to be 4 punctures and then 1 pen shot. Why 4 punctures and not 3 punctures if each of our punctures would crit? Well, the reason for that is basically that the precision stack upon critting is not granted upon releasing the attack, but whenever the attack connects. So there's a small delay between getting the first stack of precision and getting the second stack when you crit. Due to that, we have to basically get our crits on either the first, second, or third hit to ensure that we have 6 stacks at the end of 4 hits. And to get that consistently, we want to look at, okay, getting the 3 puncture rotation in and getting at least 2 stacks. We want to maximize our chances for that, and therefore it is best to have 42% crit chance. So that means crit on our gloves and on both our rings. If we drop crit chance from our gloves, for example, and drop to 30% crit, we see that we massively gain a loss in total crit chance with puncture during the 3 puncture rotation. And that could lead to a massive loss in DPS if we, for example, do the 4-1 rotation perfectly each time, but don't have 6 stacks at the end of it, and then shoot our pen shot and basically waste maybe our shadow imbuement as well, and having to restack 3 common points and expectant again before being able to shoot our pen shot again. So in order to ensure that we get 6 stacks of precision, we want to have 42% crit chance, which is basically the maximum amount of crit chance that you get. Depending on Paragon, obviously, it's like 1 or 2% more. But yeah, that is the crit chance that we're trying to reach in order to get the most consistency with 99.26% out of using puncture to gain 6 precision stacks before shooting pen shot. If you do not like swapping at all, or it is too complicated for you because you're playing on a controller or something, then I also have a no swap version in the planner linked below in the description. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, then make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It does immensely help me out. And if you want to see more of me, then make sure to catch me live on Twitch. I'm streaming there around 9 PM GMT +1 every other day. And there you can also see the build in action a little bit more, and if you have any questions, make sure to post them in the comments below. And as always, Rogue's back on the menu.